Hi there. I might have another angle at the current situation of increased desperation in different nations. It's a little bit rhythmical and rhyming, but what I mean is like Spanish austerity, Latvian brain drain, US food stamp situation. Because I was reading this, and I'll read it. Human trafficking is the illegal trade of human beings for the purpose of reproductive slavery, commercial sexual exploitation, forced labor, or a modern-day form of slavery. The protocol to prevent, suppress and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children, was adopted by the United Nations in Palermo, in Italy in 2000. And it is an international legal agreement attached to the United Nations Convention against Transnational Organized Crime. The Trafficking Protocol is one of the 3 protocols adopted to supplement the convention. Okay. You might guess where I'm going, but here. The Trafficking Protocol defines human trafficking as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring or receipt of persons by means of the threat or the use of force or other forms of coercion, of abduction, of fraud, of deception, of the abuse of power or of a position of vulnerability or of the giving or receiving of payments. The recruitment, well, let's say so basically what's in there is the recruitment of people, let's say for, of course, forced labor, based on fraud is human trafficking. Now the only thing that, so you could say that students that have been attracted to universities because they could get student loans and they could have an education there, which of course is a fraudulent amount of money that you're paying for the education because you're reading books and there's nothing. Let's say you're supposed to go out of the university with yourself and nothing else, but with more knowledge. That knowledge cannot be worth the amount of money that you pay for it in the US. Very reasonably, let's say, evident by the fact that in Holland you only pay 3,000 euros for something that you pay 60,000 euros for something like in the US. But anyway, later in life then you are supposed to hand over part of your income to the banks that have provided you with student loans, but the jobs that you applied for the university for to get eventually aren't even there. And that's of course because of the carbon credit crunch, the fact that the carbon credit economy, the oil is running out and you cannot have all these fancy jobs anymore because there's basically no machines. You cannot power the machines to keep everybody fed while you're doing that job. And more people have to work on useful stuff, but that's another issue. But you can clearly see that fraud and deception, in order to get you to go into debt, in order to make you work for money, because that's of course what you have to do then. It's the only solution to going into debt. It's implied is human trafficking, according to this United Nations Convention. Maybe that's why the United States has such enormous negative attitude towards the United Nations. The United Nations are also the ones that point out that drug trafficking kept the banks going in 2008. Anyway, I wanted to provide this for your consideration, and it's an interesting angle. And think about it, because it cannot be, and that's my biggest common sense, let's say, perspective. It cannot be that people are locked down and cannot do anything. That people don't own anything in order to make their lives better. They don't own any means. It's all money. Well, money is printed by the banks. It doesn't mean anything. It's a means of exchange. In itself, it doesn't mean anything. And so there's lots of property that needs to move, let's say, be changed ownership. There's lots of debt that is completely meaningless and has to be forgotten about. And in order to achieve that, it's very good to point out that some situations, and this can also be mortgage situations, or people that have been sold credit cards. Money, you're supposed to work for money. So if you're forced to work for money and your requirement to have the money is coerced on you or is a result of fraud or deception, then the person that has done that is a human trafficker. And there's quite a severe punishment on trafficking humans. But check it out below this video. It's a Wikipedia page, and I hope it gets some thoughts going.